Hi, my name is Katey Acquaro, and I'm the director here at Silverlens New York.
Hi, I'm Ryan Villamael. I'm an artist who works with paper.
Maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about what we're seeing in your show aisles.
Yeah, so basically this is a revisitation of the show I did in 2014. So these are replicas of maps that I've archived from the US archives from Michigan Library and the Library of Congress. So they have massive collection of Philippine images and Filipiniana material. So I printed it in different maps on two sides. One is during the Spanish colonial period, and the other side of the map is a more contemporary one, which is the American maps of the Philippines.
So interesting. And so take these maps and you cut them into botanical forms.
Yeah. By cutting or by forming it into these specimens, it's almost like the idea of reclamation or decolonialization, if that's, a way to put it. And that's the idea behind creating these specimens and staging it here in the US.
Specimen is like such the right word, because then you encase them in these really beautiful vitrines. So you get this like preserved quality.
Yeah.
What is your thinking behind the vitrines?
It's a very intimate object. And the idea of when we were colonized by Spain or by the Americas, it's almost like, reclaiming those specimens back and then restaging it here and putting it in this very intimate representations of those ideas of decolonialization and reclaiming.
The botanical forms, what are they? What are you referencing?
These are tropical floras that you can see just sprouting in the streets or maybe in the urban area or rural area in the Philippines. So they represent like a typical plant that you can see around. There's a papaya tree, coconut tree. So you might find it very mundane, but these are specimens that they have also collected in studies, the American occupation at that time. Yeah.
It's like interesting because maybe to you it's mundane because you have the most beautiful studio, surrounded by this flora. But like to me in New York, it's like beautiful but dirty city. It takes me somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maps are very important to your work.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What do the maps mean to you, and how did you start working with them?
It's sort of like my way to navigate my own personal journey. It's because my dad works as an overseas Filipino worker in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia specifically. So when I was a kid, I was trying to figure out where he lives, where he could have been at the time. So that's started my fascination with maps.
So maps they're both like an artifact, right, of the colonial period and of the occupation, but also they become a metaphor for migration.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe what might not be so obvious to the New York audience is that history of migration. And it's systemic.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's an economic structure.
Yeah, it's systemic. Well, Filipinos, even pre-colonial period, we've been traveling and navigating the islands or the neighboring islands. But I think most importantly, in the recent history, during the 1970s, during the martial law of Ferdinand Marcos Sr., terrible in many ways. He had great ideas, but terrible and badly executed ones. So at that time, martial law, the Philippine economy was on the verge of collapsing. The people are the collateral damage of those indecisions. So and it trickles down to the smallest unit of the society, which is the family. But it's also one thing that society keeps on fragmenting, keeps on destroying at the same time. So yeah, and my family is not an exception. That's a, I think, great realization of creating the show. It's pretty liberating in many sense, but also devastating because it's still an ongoing phenomena. People leave because there's nothing left back at home. There are less opportunities for people. You felt like the people are paralyzed. They don't have any choice. They don't have any choice but to leave the country, to look for greener pastures elsewhere, to provide for your family.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that is very special about your work, and one of the possibilities of art making, right, is that you are able to take the personal, very deeply personal story and hold it up as a mirror to something that is global, like that is historical, that is economic, and that is contemporary. I wonder, how do you feel, you fit into that?
Well, initially I was very hesitant to present works that are deeply, deeply personal. It's coming from a place of, I don't know, fragmented emotions, I guess. And but thinking about it, something very deeply emotional in many sense is also very political. So, yeah.
You said something that really stuck with me once. You said, I feel compelled to tell my story because mine is one story of many.
Yeah.
So it's like devastating, but it's not special.
Yeah, it's not very special. It's not unique, and it's been happening still. Yeah.
The vitrines are interesting because they're also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this sense of preservation of, like trying to stay, trying to maybe keep.
Yeah.
Or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think you perfectly got the idea. It's a tiny piece of specimen, but what comes of like building that specific work is labor. Is you have to sit down and really dwell on it, think about it, and really reflect on the work in many ways. I work in isolation. I work alone. I don't hear or I don't play any music in the studio. I have to say, when I'm in the studio alone, it's almost like I'm praying or meditating. So yeah.
But you've been doing this for a while. This is a series that's ongoing.
It's an ongoing series.
Since when? How did it start?
I think I experimented with just humble materials. I mean, I graduated from an art school. I majored in painting.
As everybody does.
But the thing is, as a young artist who wanted to create or wanted to put their works out there, economically, you just can't. I didn't have the means back then. I mean, a tube would cost you like $100, I guess, just for one pigment. And it's very limiting in many ways. So I guess I would have to say that the material, paper, landed on my hands. It's a very humble material, and we have shared experience utilizing paper when we were kids. We fold it, we cut it, we color on it, so it's a very humble material, but it's also something that you can mold, you can sculpt, you can stretch.
Your process, you're working with paper.
Yeah.
And what, an X-Acto knife, a blade?
Yeah, I want to keep the material very basic. I just have my cutter with me. It's not even an X-Acto knife.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's just a normal cutter and a cutting mat.
Yeah.
Leave me in my studio alone for hours and hours.
The no music thing is crazy to me.
Yeah. It's just a way for me to really like focus or zone in on the work. Yeah. It's almost like a trance or something when I make work.
What is your studio like? Like, what is the landscape?
Where I live, I built a small studio in my mom's house when I moved back during the pandemic. I built a small studio there to have my own space, but that studio is, or that house is I guess, a testament of me and my mom like being together and working it out as adults this time around. Because I've been away from our house for so long, and moving back again as an adult is a totally different story.
Yep.
Yeah, I know a lot of people will relate to that. Yeah, but yeah, it's a studio that is, yeah, a testament of us, of our tenacity, I guess, with the stuff that we went through.
It's interesting talking about this house and talking about your mom and the difference, between adulthood and childhood, because childhood and home and house actually play a very specific role in this show.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk about the piece Echoes of Home, which, per my understanding, is kind of your first foray into sound as a medium.
Yeah. That work is the heartbeat of the entire show. It's an actual blueprint of our house. A house that my parents, when they got married, initially planned for us as family. And it was a pretty humble house when I was browsing on the blueprints. It's a very basic house that can provide what a small family needs. But that house didn't actually materialize because of those factors. Economically, I mean, yeah, we couldn't, because we were part of the demographic that is, I would say, lower middle class. So that's the reason why my dad considered leaving. And secondly, it's a material that is deeply personal, but at the same time, it's a timestamp.
There's another component, though.
Yeah.
It is also a relic.
Yeah. That component is a sound component. It's an audio recording I found in some cabinets also.
Oh my God.
It's a voice tape recording of my 6-year-old self and my mom having a conversation. We're gonna send that cassette voice recording to him on his birthday. And yeah, those conversations are pretty mundane and just a generic conversation, I might say. But it's something that tells a lot of stories, not just my personal story, but these voice tapes are flying in and out of the Philippines at that time. It's a way for a lot of families who had or has a relative working abroad as an overseas Filipino worker, to bridge that gap of longing and isolation. I felt like I would have to describe it as something like we were moving in parallels, like my dad's life elsewhere, and my mom's life back home at the homeland. We were moving in parallels, and time is moving as well. But when you move in parallels, those lines don't meet.
Right.
And by sending these tapes, by sending letters, that's a way for us to bridge that gap between us.
So what was it like to hear yourself as a 6-year-old boy?
It's an interesting one because you can really hear traces of myself right now as an adult from the voice of that kid, like speaking. Sometimes it's pretty annoying because or obnoxious because that little kid is, something else, I must say. Yeah, but yeah, it's you can really see the traces of that kid because while you're hearing it, you can hear the hopes, the dreams.
Happy birthday, Papa! Happy birthday! Uy, tata mo yan. Sige, ito na ha. Patayin muna namin at kami. Antok na talaga.
So what do you hope people take away from this show?
Well, hope. That's what I want the audience to really take, when they move out of the gallery, when they see the pieces or what the show is about. That's what I want. That's my intention, hope.
So to hope.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Katey.
It's an honor to show your work. Genuinely, it's an honor to show your work here in New York.
I felt privileged and grateful for the opportunity as well.
Ryan Villamael is on view at Silverlens New York through March 1st, 2025.